What's going on, y'all? Kevin Kuhn here from Athlete Factors. This is the Athlete Factors podcast. I'm here with an old friend, Olivia Zander. What's going on?
Hey, everyone. Good to be here.
Excellent. I'm so glad we get to do this. This is going to be so fun. So let's talk a little bit about how we met, because like a previous guest, Ian, it was at running camp when you were in high school and I was in college.
Many ages ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
Long ago, like 2008-ish, somewhere in
I
there.
actually gathered some old pictures. I don't know if you can put them up later on this, but
Yeah.
I'll have to email them too. But some good group photos in there, some good photos of the old accident that occurred in the pool that you were there for.
Yeah. Got to see that firsthand. So yeah, let's talk about that a little bit, because that was scary for everybody. We were playing was it water polo or yeah. So at running camp we would do what did they call it?
In the middle of our 3 days, we decided it was cool to play water polo, which is one of the most exhausting sports that you could ever play, ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Playing with
part of
nets that were not tied down to the pool deck properly. So
no, they were heavy and they were metal.
Yep.
So yeah, it was part of the modern pentathlon.
Yes.
That we were doing. So I don't know how it happened, but all of a sudden,
just swimming in the deep end, coming up for some air, and I just get knocked.
The corner of an all-metal goal. Right heavy. In the forehead.
Pretty heavy.
Yeah. Blood everywhere. It was like Jaws, like Shark Week all over again. And then like
right away.
Everybody's screaming. And then you're like looking panicked, and like it was crazy. And then
I was for sure conscious, but
yeah. I remember you being like like trying to get to the ladder to get out. And then I think somebody jumped in to like try to help you, and then Tim was like right there and like helped get you out, and then it like laid you down, and we're like covering you with towels.
Broke loose right
people
there.
People are like screaming and crying, and like more blood everywhere, like bloody towels, and it's just like covering your face. It was amazing. It was super exciting.
Spent the whole ambulance ride just in my bikini and the waking up in the CAT scan. I'm like, what's up, everyone? My mom's calling the doctor, just panicking, like, don't mess up her face.
No, it was a cool scar when you came back. Everybody was like,
it's pretty much. I mean, I can see it, but
hard to see.
Pretty much faded now. So
yeah,
that
was
lots of Harry Potter jokes always coming my way in high school. I'm like, come on, that's kind of old. Can we be a little more creative?
Honestly, that's low hanging fruit. That's too easy.
Yeah. Got to be better than that. But
yeah.
It all worked out.
Yeah.
Didn't get to compete in our final race, but
the 5K.
Had two black guys and.
Yeah. I resented you for that, because I don't think we did well after that. So.
Bad for the team morale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Sorry.
Life goes on. I forgave you.
Thank you.
So, that brings us to what you're doing now. So tell us a little bit about your current job.
Yeah. So, after the 4 years track and cross country, went to Illinois State for my degree, 4 years, bachelor's of athletic training. Did not run track and cross country D1 there. Wasn't quite good enough for that. And also clinicals. You can't really be participating in sports when you're taking care of them. So, So 4 years of that, graduated 2014, dabbled with some marathons Ironman post-graduating. I still work for Athletico, which is a physical therapy and athletic training outreach company. So I was contracted full-time to a D3 university on the west side of Chicago called Concordia University Chicago. So I've been through Athletico, not actually working in a PT clinic, but just solely at the university full-time.
Nice.
Working with, I think there was 6 of us total full-time athletic trainers. There was 2 contracted Athletico employees, so me and my other coworker, and then we had a GA who was a certified athletic trainer, and then the rest were on staff there. So
Gotcha.
It was nice because we all got to split up like what sports we were with, so it wasn't just like the high school setting where there's like 2 athletic trainers, maybe sometimes 1, and they're just responsible for everything. So kind of nice getting to split things up like that. So I worked with baseball primarily, and then kind of in the fall I was just, we switched sports a lot in the fall. So one year I did football, I did volleyball for 2 years, so kind of just wherever, but baseball was always consistent. So yeah.
Gotcha. Is that your favorite sport to work with?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It's probably nicer when you get to spend a little bit more time.
Yeah.
To get to know the athletes and know their quirks and.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the coaching staff was great. You just develop relationships like that with people, and it just becomes a lot easier to do your job when you have good relationships with people. So who knew?
For sure. Yeah. It's weird how that works. Awesome. So tell us a little bit about where, kind of in general, where does athletic training fit into the grand scheme of sport performance, injury prevention, the whole sports medicine and sports performance realm, if you will?
Yeah. So a lot of people don't actually know what athletic trainers are, which is a huge source of just frustration for me and a lot of other athletic trainers. People are like, "Oh, you're an athletic trainer? Can you get me in shape, like personal trainer?" I'm like, it's kind of tough on the heart, but I mean, there is an aspect of sports performance, but it's more so athletic training. I like to describe it as you're basically on the front lines, so you're there from the start that the injury occurs, and kind of what you do as an athletic trainer from the beginning sets the precedence for how the athlete's going to recover, heal, get evaluated, diagnosed, referred out to PTs, like certain physicians that they need to see. So it's really, really important for the athletic trainer to kind of be on their toes and be right there when the injury happens, be able to kind of take them through, and you're with the athlete every step of the way. So
yeah, as far as like being the first person there when the injury occurs, you're kind of like the sports paramedic, sort of, but then you're also there the entire length of if there has to be surgery or if there has to be rehab, like you're involved in that, and then the return to play, and then so on and so forth. So you're really spanning the entire spectrum, where most individual professions within sport performance, I feel, are a little more segmented or compartmentalized. So I think that's pretty unique. So
yeah. It's also like being the main source of, you're kind of like the go-to person for all communication. So you're the one that's kind of like first notifying if there needs to be parents notified that their kid's injured or their kid's in the hospital or whatever. So you're kind of the person that's going out, reaching out to them. Then you're reaching out to the team doctor, setting up appointments. You're reaching out to their physical therapist, asking progress, or just referring someone to them, making sure it's a good fit, and just constant communication between everyone. You're contacting professors if someone's concussed and they need to be implemented, the system needs to be implemented for the concussion protocol in school. So you're just constantly in the main source of communication for everyone. So
Gotcha.
Unique like that.
Yeah, I had no idea that was the case. So that's, yeah, even I don't know what you do. Hey, do you think you could get me in shape for some, you know what, never mind. I'll just moving on.
I know a guy. I know a guy.
Awesome. So if you had to like um, narrow down your responsibilities to like one or two primary things, like what do you think your primary role is as the athletic trainer?
So I would say if I just had to narrow it down, probably like evaluating and diagnosing injuries and just coming up with the protocols during preseasons, injury prevention stuff like education,
Mm-hmm.
and then implementing the rehab once they are injured and they're having to go through the recovery process. So those are probably the main two things that I would kind of narrow it down to.
Gotcha. So along those lines, how much do you get to work with, um, let's say, sport performance or the strength and conditioning staff to implement, um, like, so let me back up. So do you see patterns of injury that you're like then, oh, okay, it seems like there's a higher number of individuals getting this same type of injury. So in order to prevent that this coming season, I need to go talk to strength and conditioning staff and say, hey, there's a major issue here. How do we fix this?
Yeah.
Is that sort of what you do?
Yeah. So before at Concordia, there wasn't necessarily a main go-to person that was the strength and conditioning. It was kind of up to individual coaches, and there wasn't really a sound system there implemented that was like, hey, someone that's certified in this needs to look over it. Or at best, some of the coaches would come to us and give us that courtesy at least and be like, hey, is this okay for where we're at in our training, our preseason, our in-season, postseason, all of that stuff. So even like baseball, I would look over like their throwing protocols for when they were home for a whole month for winter break. Like they needed to still be doing their rehab, still be doing their all of that stuff. So yeah, until we got a certified strength and conditioning coach specialist at Concordia, things were a lot different. And yeah, we definitely were starting to see patterns, and we have to, I mean, you have to rely on your communication with your coaches and kind of go to them, and hopefully they'll respect you enough to listen and just know that you're not trying to take down their whole program or try to just change everything, but just make it better and make the athletes better and less injury prone and able to perform better what they're trying to accomplish. So
Yeah, I'm sure that can definitely be an uphill battle sometimes, just
yeah.
because the the coach definitely doesn't want uh, what they believe to be undeserved credit for good performance to go to you. I mean, right? Like he's the coach, he should get all the credit. But it's like, you're not doing it because you want credit. You're doing it because you want healthy athletes. You want long seasons. You want full seasons. You want these kids to
Yeah.
enjoy what they're doing too. I'm sure.
I always
So.
say to the coaches, I don't want you to have to know who I am or see me a lot, or
Mm,
athletes definitely don't want to come see me because that means that they're injured. So we want to do everything before to make sure that that's not the case and all of that. So we actually got within the past couple of seasons, we've had a strength and conditioning specialist, and he's been awesome. He's so good, and he has his own injury prevention that's specific to each sport. So they're required to go during like it's like instead of a team lift, they'll be with him at least a few times a week, and he's really good at educating them, and he's really active on social media, and he's been awesome addition to just the whole sports medicine staff. So it's been
nice.
really good to have him.
That's great.
Lots
Excellent.
of energy.
Excellent. So, what are some things that you really like, and what are some things that you really dislike about your profession?
I really like the team aspect of it. As an athletic trainer, normally how you get involved in it is you were an athlete yourself and you want to be around sports still and you want to be around that sort of environment. So I think that's definitely how most people get their foot in the door with it. So I really like the team aspect. It's great having, like, when you have, like I said, great relationships with all your athletes and coaches. Like I've made so many lifelong friendships from baseball and from just athletic training that I wouldn't have had otherwise. So that's awesome. Dislikes, I don't necessarily think that, like I said before, that athletic training gets like people don't know what it is. It doesn't get the respect that it sometimes deserves. So that's kind of a downfall. A huge portion of athletic training is just burnout. That's another huge, we could get into a whole nother podcast on burnout, but athletic trainers, I mean, they have to grind. They're the first ones there and the last ones to leave. So it can be really just take over you if you let it. So if you don't take care of yourself, it gets really hard, and then you just become disengaged and not present. And I've seen that be a huge problem for some really good athletic trainers, and it's sad. So I mean, a huge portion of it is, and what coaches sometimes don't understand is athletic trainers are always in season. So coaches might have, in season where they're away from their families a little bit more because they're always at practice, preseason, games, traveling, all that stuff. But athletic trainers are always doing that year round. So it gets to be really, really tiring and just kind of takes over your life. So you definitely have to give yourself time, give yourself breaks, step back when you need to. That was the nice part about being contracted to Concordia through Athletico, is I got to kind of step back and, talk to some of my mentors that were also my bosses through Athletico that I went to ISU with and all of that. And I'm just like, hey, I'm feeling super overwhelmed right now. Is there any advice that you could give me? What should I do? That kind of thing. Just have those tough conversations with people that you don't always want to have, but they're important. So, so I think that's definitely part of it. I think athletic training still has a long way to go, and unfortunately, the long hours, the decreased pay versus other health professionals is kind of a huge downfall. So I think hopefully when athletic training it's starting to move to masters only. So there's not going to be an option for bachelor's undergrad at all anymore. It's just masters only. So starting to move towards the PT route, just higher education and that sort of thing. So hopefully that will be good for the profession and people can build on that.
Yeah. Yeah, with that, it's probably better that there's a little bit higher barrier to entry, just because then people are going to be a little more committed. So, that's one of the things that, like, even in school, like, I had thought about doing athletic training, but I understood very quickly, even before college started, that, like, okay, how am I going to be able to spend time in the training room before, during, and after practice if I have to be at practice to run? Because I was running. Like, I was like, oh, okay, this is not an option for me. I can't do this. So, but it was at that point that I realized, like, wow, okay, like the time demands for the athletic training profession are pretty the demands are demanding. So but that's one of the things that just about this profession, about the sports performance profession, is most people don't have a regular 9-to-5 schedule. And that's one thing that I feel like is not explained up front very often. Like when you're getting into it, I think it's only fair for you to know, like, oh, okay, like what's a normal work day look like? Okay, well, if you got to be in the training room before, you know, before anybody else is in the building, because you got to turn the lights on and you got to
set everything
fill the
up.
tubs, and you got to make sure that the ice is ready, and you got to get the pads heating, and you got to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
So that, you know, if you have one athlete walk in or you have 20 athletes walk in, like you're prepared and ready. And then you've got to manage that the entire day until the last athlete leaves. Like that's strenuous.
Yeah, especially during preseason. Like I do not miss being at the school I was there from sometimes 5 a.m. before 2 hours before our first practice, and they had 3 days, and then I wouldn't leave until 10:30 at night. Like it's just, and you got to drive home and then sleep and do it all over again for all of preseason and the whole time. So it's tough.
Yeah. So I'm going to jump ahead to another question that is kind of further down the list of the questions I have. But so is this your dream job?
No.
Yeah.
But
so tell us what else you're doing.
Yes. So I'm actually transitioning right now. I'm in an accelerated nursing program through Loyola. Just started yesterday, and
Nice.
16 months total. So I kind of always knew I wanted to go back to school, but I wasn't sure for what, and I wanted to work a little bit before I decided to make that jump and not just get a random degree in something that I wasn't sure I was going to always use. I wasn't always convinced that I was going to stay in athletic training forever. So working with, like I said, with baseball, any one of my athletes that would get injured and need surgery, I was always contacting their surgeon saying, hey, can I jump in there and watch and be there for the process? Not only for my own benefit of just learning, and I thought it was cool being in the OR and communicating with all the docs and nurses there, just being there for the athlete. And that was something that became really important, and that it just helped with the communication down the line, because then if I'm there, I don't need an extra email, phone call from the doctor and nurse saying what all happened, because I was there. So it was just really nice. And then so that's kind of how I decided, hey, I like being in the OR a lot. I like orthopedic surgery setting. That'd be really cool if I could do this on a scheduled basis and get paid for it. So I started looking into nursing programs that weren't going to be full-blown 3 more years of school. So yeah, I found the accelerated nursing program, and here I am diving in. So hopefully when I graduate next December, I can hop in the orthopedic surgery setting and get going.
That's really awesome. So I'm sure you'll still see your fair share of sport-related injuries and surgeries and stuff like that. So do you still plan on kind of keeping one foot in the athletic training realm, or are you going to go 100% with surgical nursing?
Yeah, I think I'm always going to keep my athletic training license. That'd be hard for the heart to give it up. And it's so easy to just, jump in, get your feet wet in the field again, and just cover something, cover a rugby game, cover a baseball game. So it's kind of what I'm doing now, part-time anyway, through Athletico. I just have to fulfill a certain number of hours month and kind of can pick up what I want and still see athletes, still practice. I think that's something that's relatively easy to maintain. I think I can handle it.
That's good. Yeah, that'll probably reduce a little bit of the stress of having to show up, be the first one there, last one to leave every day. So seems like a little better balance where you still get to do all the stuff that you really enjoy and find meaningful, but then also expand your your range of skills and opportunities with something else that you really enjoy. So that's good. You're such a grown up.
Look at me go.
It's so hard for me to take all this in because you were one of my campers. You were one of my kids. So it's so crazy.
Full blown adulting.
They grow up so fast. So tell us a little bit about how you're currently making yourself as effective as possible, either in the realm of athletic training or in the realm of being a student again.
Yeah. Thankfully, I had some summer classes. Not thankfully, I had to take prerequisites, but in the end, I'm thankful for it because it just got me back in the. I haven't been a student in 5 years since I graduated my undergrad, so had to kind of jump back into that. And I think there's a lot of benefits that come from having worked in the field of athletic training for 5 years, because it just helps me so much more now as a student with just application of what I'm learning and some things I'm relearning. Like in pathophysiology right now, we're learning cellular response to injury, so I'm pretty familiar with that, and it's nice to not be learning it again for the first time, but being able to take like the real world experience that I had and apply it. So that's been really awesome. Just a time management aspect of it is totally different, and I'm kind of trying to figure that out now.
Even though it's an accelerated program, does it feel like life is kind of slowing down and you have a whole lot more time, or is it like just as busy, but just busy in a different way?
It's busy in a different way for sure. I mean, there's just so much to get done, and we don't start clinical rotations until next semester, so I have a little bit of time to just focus on school only. But since it's a hybrid program, I am doing all of it pretty much online, and then we have days where we go in once a week for our labs, and then we go in for tests, and that's pretty much it. So it's kind of up to us on our own if we want to get together as a group and study together or whatever. So that's kind of a different aspect because I've never obviously done online stuff. Everything's been on campus, in person, hands-on learning in the lab every day with my cohort that I graduated with, start to finish, the same 30 people. So this is a little bit of an adjustment, but yeah, so just learning really how to time manage, make myself effective in that way. And then also I'm still, like I said, I'm still working. So I'm trying to balance, trying not to spread myself too thin, because being that it's an accelerated program, it's a lot to take in at once, but it'll be worth it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So how do you like ensure that you're not only getting the most out of your athletes, but how do you also make sure that you're getting the most out of yourself?
Yeah. So tough lesson to learn, but sometimes you got to learn it the hard way. So when I was training for my Ironman, like I said, like you said, when you were contemplating athletic training, you're like, when am I going to run? I have to be here all the time. When am I supposed to run? That's the main thing. It's the main obstacle that I had as well. So I had, my Ironman was in November of 2016, and I was in the middle of football season. So that was tough. So I was waking up at 5 a.m., going to the gym to do my swim workouts, being at work all day, and then, getting home, whatever, 7, 8 p.m., and then I would have to go bike for 2 or 3 hours, and then run, and then do it all over again the next day. So it was just very, very tiring. And when you're that tired physically and mentally, and you're just drained and you're ready for the season to be over, it's kind of hard to be completely present at work and engage with people the way that you normally do. Mm-hmm. So, that's when like I said, I had to reach out to some people and kind of ask for help during that time and support and just kind of advice at how I should go about it. So once the season was over and once racing was over and everything was said and done, kind of had to step back and just look at everything and just manage my time, take care of myself a little bit better. And that's a lot easier to do when you're not in season and you're not training for an Ironman anymore. So, yeah. So after that, I always said that if I felt like I was struggling or felt like I couldn't perform the way that I wanted to at work, then luckily I had a good relationship with all my coaches and athletes and my coworkers. So kind of lean on them for support and just look to do things that way. But it's very easy, like I said, to get burned out in the field of athletic training. It's very hard. So, yeah, kind of got a little bit off track there, but.
No, well, that's just all really interesting to me. It seems like one of those things, like if you can be successful as an athletic trainer, then I'm sure you can apply just that mentality of like doing something extremely difficult to every other aspect of your life and be, really resilient and get the job done. So I think it's really good to have a lot of responsibility. Like as a person, it's good to take on as much responsibility as you can because I think that makes you a better person. It's good to do things that are really difficult because that forces you to manage your time. That forces you to like be engaged and to figure out what you really value and what you really care about. And if you're not kind of quote unquote staying busy, whether it's with things that you want to do or things that you have to do, like if you're not doing those things, then it's really easy to get complacent, to get kind of in a rut, to lose track of your why, to lose track of like goals you have. And so I think if you weren't doing something difficult like athletic training, do you think you would have got to the point where you were like, you know what? I think now I want to do this with orthopedic nursing or whatever it is. So do you think that's the case, or do you think you would have found your way to that point eventually?
Yeah, it's hard to say because my experiences as an athletic trainer led me to what I'm doing now, and what I hope to do forever. So I can't say that I regret any of those choices that I made, even though it's the long route to what I'm eventually going to end up doing. I really respect the field of athletic training, and I'm always going to have love for that part of my life. So it was hard, but you come out a better person. So it really just teaches you the importance of communication in those situations, and the relationships that you have with people is very important. So like after going through that, it just made every year after that was better and better. You become more efficient, more just effective in your communication, and just everything just runs a little bit more smoothly once you've gone through some rough times like that. So
for sure. No, I totally agree with that. So let's talk a little bit about baseball, athletic training for baseball. So what were the most common issues that you saw, like preseason versus in season versus, preseason, off season, preseason, in season, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, so as you can imagine, a lot of upper extremity stuff. So, a lot of slap tears. Not so much preseason, more traumatic, like diving into bases situations. Had had that happen a few times. More so just overuse, tendonitis, rotator cuff, biceps tendonitis, I saw a few Tommy Johns, concussions, not as common, but it happens. Catchers getting just plowed at the plate. Not a fun sight. Very, very high motions in those types of games. It's always interesting. Baseball players are a different breed, but love them.
Yeah. So when I was, let's see, it was the summer between 3rd and 4th grade for me. And my brothers and I were up in Iowa for the summer. So my parents, we were missionaries in the Philippines, right? So, but my 2 brothers and I kind of came home for the summer early. My parents we were planning on coming home for furlough, but they had to stay with my sister. She was finishing up high school. So all of us boys came home and we stayed with my aunt and uncle in Iowa. And I got to play, Pee-wee baseball, like summer baseball, which was awesome. So I was warming up before a game with my brother. We were just playing some toss, if you will, before our game at my aunt's house.
Ball around.
Yep. And I think my aunt came out and she was talking to me, and so I was like, my brother was over here and I just kind of turned this way and I'm like talking to her. And then all of a sudden, like, my face really, really hurt. And I was like on the ground, like, what just happened? And quickly realized that my brother was like not paying attention.
You just let it fly on you, huh?
Yeah, like, great throw. I mean, if I had literally just put my hand up, it would have been fine. But nope, because I'm just talking to my aunt, and then
classic
broken nose. So I didn't like baseball as much after that, but we came back to Ohio. I played another season, but I don't think. I'm not sure if that was like, kind of the nail in the coffin that made me like not really want to do baseball, but I think running was definitely in the cards for me. But
no hand-eye coordination necessary. That's what I always say. Athletes are always asking me like, "What sports did you play?" I'm like, "I ran track and cross country my whole life," and they're like, "Oh, so not coordinated." I'm like, "All right, it's not that far."
That's a huge assumption.
Yes.
So, but yeah, that's one of those things. Like, baseball is it can be a little more dangerous than people think. Very high velocity, and then lots of change of direction, lots of rotation, lots of potential contact, especially coming in.
Forces on the young shoulders and elbows.
For sure.
And a big problem these days is just psychotic parents that are having their kids specialize in only one thing, and they're getting Tommy John at 12 years old. Like, you can't. It's
crazy.
Can't have that. So.
Yeah, like the data's pretty clear. Like, the earlier you specialize, the shorter your total athletic career will be.
Right.
And the less you'll enjoy sports later in life.
Yep.
And the higher your risk of injury. Like, there's a few people that are destined to be good at that sport they're going to get through whether they're playing 5 sports or whether they're just specializing in that.
Yeah.
But that's the exception to the rule. That's not
everyone is Bryce Harper.
Exactly. So I think, I think we all need to do a better job of trying to encourage kids to play lots of different sports. Yeah. And you don't have to be good at every sport.
Yeah.
In fact, like doing sports that you're not good at will probably help you improve the sports that you're already good at or the sports that you really like, just because you're going to work different movement patterns, you're going to work different skills, you're going to use your body in different ways. And, maybe you're not going to see a ton of benefit right now, but, 2, 3, 5, 10 years down the road, when you have these other movement patterns that you can pull from, like that's going to be a huge benefit to you. You'll be more resilient. You'll be more well-rounded. Like we're three-dimensional beings. We need to move in, multiple planes, and we need to be able to competently move in all three planes. And so doing a wide variety of sports, I think helps, helps facilitate some of that. Yeah. So
it's just so important, especially from a young developmental age. I mean,
do a lot.
It's very important. And I'm even seeing that now. Like the freshmen that come into college each year seem just smaller and smaller to me, but they come in and they've only it's crazy to talk to them sometimes. Like they've only been in one activity, and then they come in having all of these issues. They've already had surgery, they've already had all these things happen, and I'm just like, wow, your health history sucks.
Yeah.
You're 18 years old. You shouldn't have all these problems right now. So it's just, I mean, we're seeing it more and more common trend across healthcare. So
yeah,
big problem.
It's crazy. I think like there are definitely ways around that. Like you can quote unquote specialize in a sport early if you have a very competent, well-rounded, year-round athletic performance or strength and conditioning program that you're also doing, where you have a sport performance coach or a strength and conditioning coach or a personal trainer, or you're going to somebody who understands, oh, okay, if you're throwing every day, then what I'm going to do is not replicate that motion. I'm actually going to train everything that you're not doing.
Yes.
So that we're not pushing you closer and closer and closer to these overuse injuries. So there are definitely ways around that. I used to, not even consider that a thing, but like there are some people who know, like, no, I only want to play this sport, but I want to play that for a long time. And so, they find somebody who trains them essentially year round to be resilient, to be strong and resilient, so that they're not putting themselves at risk or as much risk. But it's hard to find somebody who can do that. It takes
a special person and a special mindset for that.
For sure.
And special parents with that mindset, for that matter. So
definitely. Yeah. I think that's a tough one, because for parents, they've got to understand that, like, okay, so if I take my car to get the oil changed, I'm not going to hand over the keys and then stand right behind the mechanic and be like, you sure you want to do it like that? Like, no, like they're the expert. I'm going to let them do it. And there have been times where working with kids, like, wow, like one-on-one session with a kid, and I'm like trying to get to know them, I'm trying to figure them out. And then like I'll have them do, a specific drill or a specific exercise, and here comes, sometimes it's the dad, sometimes it's the mom, but they want to coach. And I'm like,
yeah.
Early on, I was like, what do I do here? Like, I would just ignore them most of the time and just be like, okay, like, and then I tell the kid, like, don't listen to them, because I want you to do it this way, and the way that they're telling you to do it is really, really bad. And like, it took me a while to understand that, like, if I don't nip that in the bud and be like, hey, let's come on over here, let's talk real quick. So, and then I'll kind of use that analogy, like, hey, like when you go to a restaurant, do you tell the chef how to cook, or do you trust that they're going to cook it for you? And if they don't give you what you want, then, then you address that.
Yeah.
You cross that bridge when you come to it, or you go to a different restaurant. Like, if I don't get you results, by all means, go somewhere else. If I can't get the job done, that's totally fine. But it's really difficult for me to have to coach your kid and then correct him, and then also at the same time deal with you trying to coach. Like, too many chefs spoil the soup. So
that's a constant battle in athletic training. Like, you're on the front line, someone gets hurt, you have parents that will run onto the field if they can, if they're not stopped before. And then they're over your shoulder telling you how you should handle it or what the next steps are. And you just, like you said, you have to nip it in the bud right away and say, I'm the professional here. Can you please step back and let me do my job? And I will update you after everything is said and done. We can talk about where we're going from here, but you absolutely have to do that from the beginning. That was a huge lesson that every athletic trainer, when they're fresh onto the field, because until you start working, you've always had like a clinical instructor. You've always been with someone, whether it's at your internship or whatever. You always have someone else that's going to have those type of conversations for you, and you don't know until you actually have to dive into that part of it. So it's crazy.
Yeah, but it is crazy. There was one time where it was a slightly more than average aggressive dad. Not like aggressive, but just like he wanted to coach. Like, he wanted to be part of it, and I was like,
why'd you bring him here then?
That's honestly, I was like, hey man, so it sounds like you love to coach. Like, that's great. That's totally cool. If you want to coach, by all means, don't bring your kid in and just coach him. Like, and that's fine. Like, I'm not sending you away. I'm just saying, this is what I do. Like, trust me right now to do my job. And like I said, if I'm not getting the results, then you be coach. Yeah. But my guess is, if you brought them here, it's because you weren't getting the results that you want. So let me try, and let's see what happens.
Expertise when it's necessary.
But yeah, I still
feedback.
I still every once in a while get like, I'll get a text message from one of the kids who I train, their parents, just saying, hey, why don't you guys work on this today? Or when they come in and drop them off, they're like, hey, you know what I noticed? Like, his first step is really slow. We need to work on that. We need to improve that. And I'm like, I will take that in, under consideration.
I will write that down.
Yeah. And then as soon as I walk away, I'm like, okay, well, I'm glad that they're paying attention to what to them is the most important thing. And I'm like, okay, priorities. That is not a priority. I need to focus on this because, first step, well, I don't care about the first step until they can do this, 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 and this, and this. And then that's going to help their first step by not focusing on the first step. So, but it's just like, man, sometimes.
That's part of the education too. And that's part of, like what I said, athletic training is you have to educate your athletes, and you almost have to, when you have parents like that or coaches like that are teaching something that is wrong, and it's causing them to become injured, and they're not taking your professional advice into consideration, you almost have to, it's like another job on top of what you're already doing, like undoing everything that's been done.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother aspect to what you and I both have to deal with on a day-to-day.
So much work.
Yeah.
You gotta undo so that you can redo.
Right.
That's crazy. So tell us, and this can be academics or kind of personal development, but what what is something that you're learning right now?
So, just before this, I was diving right into my patho lecture for today. So, we are going over cellular response to injury, like I said, which we know about. So, just muscle atrophy, adaptive cellular responses, that's the kind of stuff that we're going through right now. But it's nice, like I said, I already have the prior knowledge and experience. So, yeah, I mean, don't really have time for my other fun podcasts and things that I've been listening to, but now it's just straight nursing school all day, every day. So
yeah,
we're also going into nutrition too, which is another one of my classes, which I really, really enjoy. And I know you do too. So
yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that you're enjoying it.
I can't wait to just reach out to you with we can nerd out together on some of the topics that we're grazing over.
Yes, yes. Did you happen to listen to the podcast I did with my professor from Baylor, Dr. Willoughby?
No.
Okay, well, you should check it out because we go into nutrition quite a bit, and it's practical stuff. Like, it's really good. So I enjoyed it anyway. So, but speaking of podcasts, what's a podcast that you recently have listened to that you really enjoy? It could be this one. You could say this one.
I mean, yeah, I did listen to yours and Ian's in its entirety and a couple others, but
nice.
Ian's just spitting knowledge. Shout out Ian Rowe. What's up, dude?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that guy is just he's a library of knowledge, always has been. So,
yeah.
One of my favorite podcasts that's not really medical related is Oprah's Super Soul Conversations, which I really get a lot out of. And I think that's
nice.
It gets me through some of the long drives. My commute to work to Concordia was over an hour every day each way.
Wow.
So I always had to dive into, some podcasts. Yeah, I mean, they're not always medical. Sometimes I need a break from learning all that stuff and just listen to some Oprah. She has plenty of life knowledge for me. So
yeah. So that was a little more just like personal stuff, like kind of helping you grow as an individual.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so important that you can't be focused on education within your profession. Like you've got to focus at least a little on personal development outside of your your professional realm. Like I think that's so good. I love psychology. I like listening to a lot of psychology podcasts. I like listening to guys like Jordan Peterson. He's got a really good podcast, and he brings on phenomenal guests, and I get to hear his lectures. And I watch tons of his videos on YouTube where you can literally go through a graduate class in behavioral psychology from University of Toronto. Like he puts up his entire class, like the lectures from the entire year. So going through stuff like that, like I love that because I'm like, wow, I understand myself better, and now I understand other people better, and I think that's really helpful. I think that makes me a better coach. I think it makes me a better practitioner. Exactly. Yeah. So I think that's pretty awesome stuff. Yeah. So how can people reach out to you and ask you questions? How can they follow you? How can they get in touch, etc.?
Yes. Okay. So my email is olivia.zander@athletico.com. I'd be happy to answer questions from people, anyone. And then I don't really have a medical presence, but people are more than welcome to follow my personal accounts. So that's Olivia Z2, the number 2, on Instagram and Twitter. I believe they're both the same.
Awesome. So you're not putting up like videos of wrapping people's ankles and
sometimes sometimes.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. That's what people want to see.
I mean, there's a highlight reel of baseball on my Instagram, just silly stuff that we're always doing. Like I said, lots of lifelong friendships that super important, and always get to look back on those memories, so it's important.
For sure. Awesome. So if you had to give me or anyone listening one piece of advice, how would you conclude this conversation?
So I wrote this down. Speaking of my last Oprah Super Soul conversation, that this quote just keeps coming back up, but it's a Maya Angelou quote. And it's, people will forget what you've said, people will forget what you did, but they will never forget the way you made them feel. I think that's really relevant to just us in the healthcare world and coaching world and sports world. So you might not remember your 3 sets of 10 squats that you made them do mixed in with some plyometric drills, but they'll remember you making them laugh and just having a good time. So
yeah, no, I think that's a really awesome quote and a really awesome thought to keep in mind. I think I just kind of had this thought about that, which is I think we focused so much on like the side of things where it's like, you should make people feel good because that's how that's how they're going to remember you. But the opposite side of that is equally true. Like if you make somebody feel like crap, they're going to remember that too. So so when things do get heated, when you are frustrated, when you've had a long day, and you really just want to go home and you want to, sit down on the couch and relax, and you're so stressed and you're so frustrated, whatever the case may be, like, you've got the option of leaving that person with, a feeling that, that you care about them, that you're investing in them and that you're trying to help them, or you can leave them with a feeling that they don't matter. And so I think that's huge. I think that's really important to think about. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Of course.
Awesome. Olivia, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I've really enjoyed it. It's been fun to catch up and reminisce about good old days of Tough Camp.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
For sure. Yeah, as soon as you're in the trenches with surgery and stuff, I'll have to get you back on so that you can share some cool stories about that, because I'm sure you'll have some pretty awesome and interesting stories about cutting people open and moving stuff around.
I always trick my athletes that I've been in their surgery, and I said, they let me make the first incision. Like, they did. And I'm like, yeah.
Like, why do you think it looks so good?
Yeah. Like, and I stitched.
Good looking scar.
Too. So they're like, wow.
That's awesome. Well, now you'll be able to, say that to a little more degree of truth, I guess.
Can't wait.
Awesome.
Part 2 coming in 16 months or more.
Nice.
A bit extra.
I can't wait. Awesome. Well, everybody, thanks for watching and listening. Go follow Olivia, and if you have any questions for her, make sure you don't hesitate to reach out to her. And stay tuned for the next episode. Adios.